What's up guys, Speeed here, and today we're going to be going over why Wraith King is one of the best heroes in Dota right now, at least in my opinion. I think he's extremely underrated and a hero you should be abusing in your pubs. This is a game of TNC against Evil Genius's fantastic game. A lot of cool plays, I just watched it. One in particular that I just want to show before we even get into the Wraith King video, just because I thought it was so cool, was Arteezy actually read a smoke by seeing a Guardian Greaves on the creeps, I believe. So yeah, you see it here. He clicks on the creeps, sees the Guardian aura and the Pipe aura, and pinks it out. So, pretty cool way of reading smokes. That's some next level stuff right there. But we're not going to be covering how to just read smokes the whole game. We're going to be primarily focusing on how to abuse Wraith King and how fast this hero actually farms with these new skeletons. So, let's get into it, and yeah, I'll see you there. Now, before we hop into the main content of this video, I just want to let you guys know that you can check out guides just like this one, made by top tier pros, and have over thousands of different options over at gameleap.com. Now, let's get into the main video. So before we get into actually farming patterns, I'm just going to briefly cover the item build I think you should go. Instead of going for anything like a blink tagger, you basically just want to maximize your farm and snowball as fast as possible. And in order to do that, I would recommend you go Midas into Radiance. That's what Gabby is doing in this game here. He's maxing out his skeletons, then going for phase boots into Midas, into Radiance. This allows you to stay on top of people in fights and snowball as fast as possible, especially with these skeletons. The first point I want to make in terms of Wraith King is that he's one of the best junglers in the game, especially now that these skeletons actually respawn. They're unbelievably good for farming. And as a result, what I would recommend is if your position 5 picks a hero like AA, Rubik, Witch Doctor, any hero with a very strong level 6 spike, give them the lane, well, build up some skeletons in the lane, and then once you have at least like 4 or 5 skeletons, 4 if it's level 2 or 6 if it's level 3, then just head to the jungle and give them solo XP. This is a great way to maximize farm, and one of the strengths of Wraith King, especially in pubs. So the next play I want to mention is Gabby decides to go bottom after basing here. Now, what I'm going to recommend for you guys in pubs is something a little different and outside of his play here. Now, I don't want to say that I'm above Gabby or, make it seem like I know better than him. But from what I've observed in a lot of pubs, cores, especially in the lower brackets, spend way too much time fighting and not nearly enough time farming. It's a lot easier to farm your way to victory, especially in solo queue, rather than fighting. He can show up to a fight here and maybe get an ion shell, but his hero is not particularly strong. Wraith King gets strong once he hits this Radiance timing, which he's actually skipping the Midas to get to even earlier. So that's something you can do. I think it's totally fine to go the Midas as well, though. So he TP's bottom here, takes a fight. It goes okay. He's not super weak. Due to the phase boots, he can kind of get on top of people. Picks up a kill on Fly, then gets a kill on Crit on the Earthshaker, but in the end he ends up dying and not gaining too much net worth. So is it really worth it for him there? I would say no. Maybe it's to help his team, so he's going to show up to fights. But the thing is, in pubs, you can abuse the fact that Wraith King is one of the fastest farming heroes in Dota simply by sending skeletons down the open lane. If you ever see the Mexican standoff, and by Mexican standoff what I mean, it's this idea that is, or a play that happens very commonly, where two teams in the bottom lane, top lane, or mid lane, it really doesn't matter, anywhere, where they'll just kind of stand in between the lane, like on both sides, waiting for someone to make the first move, or just like looking for a gap. And when this happens, people waste a lot of time, right? To identify it, you'll see like 3-4 heroes here, you'll see a lot of TPs coming in, 3-4 heroes on the other side, and as a carry player, or even as a farming support or a mid, but in particular for this case, Wraith King, a hero that split pushes very heavily with skeletons, dodge those type of engagements. That one, for instance, I would dodge it, strictly for the fact that it is easier to snowball yourself and then come online with an item timing, such as your Radiance, later on. Because you'll notice right after this fight happens, I think he realizes that he probably doesn't want to fight that much anymore. His hero is not that strong, especially compared to the early game of heroes like SF, Puck, and Visage. So, especially with this ultimate down in particular, he's going to go head off to the jungle and just take these camps. It's totally fine to use your skeletons previous to max charges to clear up camps like this, especially if it's to wipe out the camp before it actually respawns. You notice this allows him to be able to clear another full 2 camps, which is absolutely massive. That's the best way to ramp up your farming efficiency, because you really need to get the last hits on the creeps as Wraith King to guarantee that you're getting the skeleton charges, right? So now that he's done farming the jungle, the common rotation is that you're going to want to wipe out those 2 camps. You can take the Ancients in this tri-camp as well. I'll briefly go to it. But these 2 camps on Radiant are what's most important, right? You take these two camps. You can take Ancients. Depending on the type of creeps, these Mud Golems, or the Granite Golems, I should say, are fantastic because they don't do AoE damage. But if it's like these Prowlers or the Dragons, you're going to have a harder time. For Dire, it's the same thing. You're going to want to take this camp, and then rotate towards the bottom lane. So basically, you want to play the triangle as Wraith King, and then rotate back towards the lane after you've cleared it out in order to farm lane creeps so you can build skeletons. Basically, your main priority is to farm skeletons. Farm skeletons. These things are what makes your hero good. Now you notice Gabby puts a big emphasis on using them even when he only has 3 or 4 charges, which I think is interesting. But what does it allow him to do? It allows him to contest something like these bounty runes without having to stay in the wave for the entire time. So this doesn't necessarily give him a lot of XP, but it maximizes his farming efficiency because now he can just take a large camp while he lets 3 or 4 skeletons push the wave. Especially considering these skeletons don't have like a decay time, or they don't run out after a period of time. It's totally fine to use them at this point. Especially previous to your Radiance, when you can't farm that many creeps, you're not going to be able to build up skeleton charges left and right. So it's much more reliable just to use them when you have 3 or 4 charges to wipe through creep waves and then move on to the nearby camps. So what's important to note is that once he is done finishing off these camps towards the top lane, I'm going to go into free camera just to make it even more clear. Once he finishes off these top camps, they've respawned now obviously because it's a 16-minute mark, he leaves the top lane and allows the skeletons to push in the wave, right? He doesn't want to get picked off. Now in your pubs, if you see the enemy team strictly pushing bottom as 4 or 5 heroes, I recommend you try to wipe through the entire enemy jungle. This camp. It's even fine to take these and then cut another wave top. But basically what I recommend is to stay top for as long as possible, but then if the enemy team goes dark, right, if they go missing, then you want to just come back to this triangle and ramp up your farm that way. Basically, it's a very, very simple rotation that you should nearly always stay on course with, right? Don't vary. If you're on Dire, you play for the bottom side of the map. If you're on Dire, you play top side. And this is what's efficient for Wraith King. It's very easy for him to ramp up farm faster than near any other hero in Dota. Notice in this game, due to his early game fights, I think he set himself behind a little bit. Also, Arteezy ended up going Midas, so he's quite a bit ahead of him, and that's just partially due to the game state. But trust me, this is one of the fastest farming heroes in Dota, especially if you avoid early game fights. So in this situation here, it's a 16-minute mark, and I said, right, you don't want to typically leave the top side for Radiant or the bottom side for Dire, but this TP is fine, right? Why? Because his team is going top, and his main goal is to strictly get his Radiance. So, obviously, in this case, if his 4 teammates are top and the enemy team responds to top, he does not want to be top, right? You're trying to take the open farm, and often, the reason why I say it's top side Radiant, bottom side Dire is because this is the open farm in the majority of games, even in your pubs. You can notice this if you watch some of your own replays. So, in this case, it's totally fine for him to TP bottom, because, right, his team goes top to pressure in the tier 2 tower, and Arteezy pushed in the bottom wave very far. So this is very safe, right? The enemy team shifts top, the lane is pushed in, it makes a lot of sense for him to go here. Otherwise, it's kind of dangerous to TP here, because you don't have a lot of, like, backup, right? If he goes all the way out to over here to farm, they can TP into the shrine, they can TP into the tier 2 bottom, and there's a good chance they will ward up this area if they're playing bottom. So it's just very dangerous to go into this area where it's very easy for them to ward, e.g. for instance. So in this case, I'm actually a little bit surprised he didn't continue pushing in the lane. I believe it's because they didn't know that EG was top exactly, but now that he sees them, he's going to spawn his skeletons and allow them to push out bottom. So I think that's what he wanted them to do. Unfortunately, they saw the sniper farming and they took a little bit of a detour. What you going to do? You can't control that. But this is what you want to do on Wraith King. You wipe out the jungle and then send your skeletons down the lanes. Now, it is important sometimes to actually stay with the skeletons and get the XP, right? Because Wraith King really wants level 12, level 18. His talents are very good. So it is important to actually stay in the lane sometime and sap some XP. But I believe TNC thought that EG was going for the Roche and that they would have to end up contesting it. So Gabby wants to rotate back towards the top lane. But you notice... oh my god, I have to meet them. But you notice all the while he's farming top, look at what the skeletons are doing. I mean, this is insane. Like, almost no other hero in Dota can do this, where you just infinitely push a lane. You could say, like, Prophet, for instance, but you still have the micro. Wraith King, you don't even have to pay attention. You just spawn them in a lane, and they just gain you like 1k net worth over time. It really is that good. And that's why I think this hero is so broken right now. You just like push lanes from across the map. Now, they take a fight here. He's able to pick up his Radiance. Sumail gets glyphed. But, yeah, in the fights, you kind of just walk around, throw stuns at the nearest hero. Not too much to do as Wraith King, and honestly, that's why he's so good, though. Like, it really is that easy if you do get your reincarnate off. But, yeah, the hero's just that straightforward, guys, and it's why I'd recommend in your pubs. You simply play the tri-camp, push in the lane. If your team goes and farms that area, you can go to the opposite side of the map, you spawn skeletons down the lane, and you head back to the jungle. It really is that simple. And then in the fights, you just walk at people and throw out stuns. I mean, even though he's not that farm right now, I would argue he's one of the scariest heroes in the fights. 2 lives with the Radiance, and an 8-second cooldown stun with these obnoxious skeletons that zone out supports completely. You're so hard to fight into. You really are. And especially for pubs where people don't necessarily like back, especially after committing. Wraith King punishes that so hard, right? People commit very hard in pubs. In pro matches, you'll see teams like force out a spell and back, but in pubs that doesn't happen, right? That it's very unlikely to see like top tier play like that, and as a result, Wraith King capitalizes on situations of overcommittal. It's similar to Bristleback, where in pubs people commit onto Bristle, he gets off a lot of spikes, and even if they end up killing him, everyone's like 1/4 or half HP, and it's barely worth it. So there's not much more I want to talk about within this video. At this point, he's just building up skeleton charges. Once you have your Radiance, it's more reasonable to actually wait till you get 8 to use it, because you might actually overlap if you don't. But regardless, he's just going to let his skeletons farm camps while he pushes out lanes in order to snowball himself. And at this point, once you get your Radiance, it is very good to get your Blink Daggers, so you can get on top of core targets. For him, it's either like SF or Earthshaker, Puck if he gets lucky, right? He probably doesn't want to jump Puck because it's very hard to stun Puck, or the Visage, right? But basically, once you get your Radiance, you're just going to run at people. That's all you have to do. You just jump in on whoever the squishy targets are, typically going for people who have no disengage. That's the best thing to do as Wraith King. You just get on top of the heroes that can't disengage, and you force heroes, maybe such as Storm Spirit, Ember Spirit, all the heroes you typically couldn't kill, to help out their teammates, committing a lot of their either mana or defensive spells, and therefore you can kill them later on in the fight. So I'm going to wrap up the video there. I just really want to cover the farming efficiency and the potential of this hero. I know he's not number 1. I would have rather have a game where a Wraith King goes absolutely off, but you notice, like, he's given a lot of space to his team, right? He has a Darkseer and a Sniper, 2 other heroes that push a lot of lanes, and yet he's able to keep up his farm. You notice EG isn't even necessarily able to do that, right? Because Lifestealer always has to be in the lane he's farming, same thing for SF, same thing for Puck. But Wraith King, you can spread out the map infinitely, which really allows your team to spread out the net worth, and in a game like this, maintain a net worth lead even though they don't have the top heroes. So definitely try out Wraith King in your pubs, apply these farming tips that I've shown you here in this video, and I think you're going to have a lot of success. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please do like and subscribe, and of course, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.